Alrighty folks, I'm driving around Columbus, Ohio. Now, Columbus, Ohio may not mean much to you if you travel the big wide world. It's, one of those Midwest cities. But this is the city that I lived in for most of my life. My mom and sister and I moved here when I was 7, and I did not escape here until I was 32, I think. When I was 32, I moved out to Boston. And then I came back for 10 years because Mom needed some assistance. So I figured while I was in town, I'm here to get some medical work done, I thought I would show you guys a little bit of what my history looks like. So right now we are driving up Carl Road. And this is a road when my son was born where we traveled up and down this road all the time. When my son turned 2, his father and I and our boy, we moved up here, and I'm going to show you these apartments here in just a bit. But all up and down this road, there's like a YMCA where my boy took swim lessons at and went to summer camp at, and his grandparents live right off this road. There's a grocery store, there's all kinds of fast food. We're going to head up to the apartment complex where we lived, and I'll show you guys that. And it's right in a neighborhood where the apartment complex was that I lived in right before I moved into my car. So I'll show you that too. What else did we do up in this neighborhood? My son's aunt and uncle still live up in this neighborhood. So, and I've got good friends up in this neighborhood. So this is a neighborhood on the north end of town. Still within, Columbus is a wagon wheel city, so you can imagine it kind of like a circle. And if you imagine that like a clock, all of this is happening up in the kind of 12 o'clock area. Now where I was born at was down at the 3 o'clock position. Well, not born, but that's where we lived when I was 7, from 7 until I was 18. So I'm going to show you guys all those things because, I'm here and I've got nothing else to film, really. That's sad. I'm not going to say that. All right. But anyway, as you can see in the window behind us, it's kind of your standard, suburban neighborhood. You've got your 2-level homes, your split-level homes, your ranch homes, reasonable cars out in the driveway. There's a place getting their basement redone. And one of the things that I like about Columbus and a lot of the territory that I've been showing you guys with Georgia and Tennessee and the eastern half of Texas is that everything is so green and so lush, and that's what I'm used to. I'm a little trepidatious about going out west because I've been seeing all of these van lifer videos, and it's all, desert and desert and desert, and I'm like, I'm not sure I want to go to a desert because I'm so used to there being trees for shade and for wood if you need that to build a house or whatever, fruit that you can just pick off a tree and eat. And so I don't really know how people live in the desert without dying or importing everything they need from somewhere else. And I know that Mexicans and Native Americans have been doing this since forever. They've been making it work. I just don't know how because I've never lived in that neighborhood. And even the Native Americans that my mom was really hip to were all Great Lakes people, and so I know about fishing and growing corn and squash and beans. I got that. But this whole desert thing, I don't understand it. So anyway, I'm going to turn the phone around so that you guys can see these neighborhoods we're going to drive into, okay? Now, when we first moved here to Reynoldsburg, Ohio, which is one of the suburbs outside of the outer belt that goes around Columbus, Ohio, this whole area up in here was all farmland. It was all crops and fields, and none of this existed. Now, most of it sprouted up fairly shortly after we moved here, but when I was super little, and we're talking 7 to 10 years old, none of this was here. This was all field. So just to give you a sense of the kind of neighborhood that I, kind of grew up and lived in as a kid. Now let me see if I can find the start where the housing's kind of stopped at, where the suburbs had, the sprawl had stopped. Because this used to be a silo. I remembered when they swapped out the silo. I was so mad because I loved that silo. It was falling down, but I just thought it was really cool. I'm into old stuff like that. I mean, even as a kid, I just thought it was cool. So yeah, this whole part wasn't here at all. But I think right around in here-ish is where this housing community stopped and the farmland started, roughly. Now, what you can't see is that running alongside us on the left-hand side, there's Blacklick Creek runs right down in there. And when I was young, like in my early teens, I rode my bike down here one time and took a walk along the river. And it is one of my favorite moments in time because I was surrounded by all of the greenery that comes up around rivers. And I found a patch of flowers that was just teeming with hummingbirds. I must have seen like 15 hummingbirds walking along this creek that's running alongside us here. And it was just an amazing moment. And I've never experienced hummingbirds since like I did that day. But I knew that the creek was here because of this school building. This, if it's even still a school building, they've torn down a couple of houses here. This is where Rose Hill Elementary was. It's still here. This is where I went to grade school at, or to elementary school. I was here from 2nd grade through 5th grade. So for 3 years, 4 years. Yeah, it's all changed. I mean, the parking has changed. There's paint on the side of the building now. They enclosed the walkway. This used to be the upper grade building, and then there was a walkway here. And then this was the gymnasium and the lower grade building, and you used to be able to walk back in where all those dumpsters are, and it took you back to the field. And then anyway, because of the field trips that we would do for like science, they would take us down to the stream to pull up minnows and whatever. And there were houses along here, and those are gone now. I'm not sure what this construction's all about. But yeah, so that's where I was from 2nd grade through 5th grade. And if that's the Baptist church across the street, that is the church where I was baptized. Oh, that's a red light. When I was 7 or 8, I think 8, took me to the Baptist church that he was attending. And we had talked with my mom and said, hey, is it okay if she gets baptized? Mom was fine with it. So I went with my Uncle Thurman and went to his church, and I was baptized when I was 7 years old. My family was all kinds of, lapsed Protestant, I guess you could say. We didn't really go to church anywhere, but, my grandfather, my dad's dad, prayed at every meal, read the Bible every week. There are like 7 churches along this road, and remembering which one's which is complicated. But yeah, it's super lapsed. What is that? That's the Reynoldsburg Baptist. That's the church I was baptized in. All right. So the reason I'm showing you this little street is that this is the street that my mom's parents lived on. And so when we first came to live in Reynoldsburg, we stayed with my mom's parents. This is the house where we stayed. So when I was a kid, this was the main thoroughfare near our house. And you can see the Columbus Car Audio. There's the laundromat. A couple of shops. There's a Dairy Queen. But this was kind of my whole neighborhood when I was a kid growing up. But we had to cross the street to get there. Now, off to my left used to be a Friendly's ice cream and a Payless shoe store. But let me go across the street and I'll show you guys what my neighborhood looked like when I was a kid. So like I said, we're here across the street where the laundromat was. And some things have changed since I used to live here. So it's true what they say, you can never go home again. But you can shop there. They tore down the entire neighborhood that I grew up in, and now it's a Kroger. So I'd love to show you guys where I used to live, but it doesn't exist anymore. That gas station there used to be a Friendly's ice cream shop and a Payless shoe source and a 7-Eleven. Now it's none of those. Crazy times. Now this first thing that we're gonna come up on was the 7-Eleven. Now I know, you're like, why are you showing me a 7-Eleven? Can't even show you the 7-Eleven. I forgot the 7-Eleven's not here anymore. Yeah, look. So weird. Let's pretend this is North Drive. And it would have been. Oh, so we're mostly a green spot. Okay, good to know. And this would have been West Drive. So yeah, I lived pretty much right here in this part of the parking lot. That's where my house was. Ridiculous. Ridiculous. So when you're a kid, the only places you really know are your family and your school. This was the second school I attended in Reynoldsburg. At the time, this was the Hannah J. Ashton Middle School. You had your 6th graders up in that building, and a bunch of the extended 7th grade classes were down in this building. Not sure why they're half-mast today. I believe this is one of their administration buildings now. Now, I had kind of intended for this whole drive to be anything but green spaces, because I feel like I've driven you guys through all the trees and green spaces in the world in the last several videos. But if you're ever in Columbus, Ohio, and you're looking for somewhere green to be, they have a fantastic Metro Park system. This one here is Blacklick Metro Park, and it is the park that figured into all of my childhood, young adult, adulthood ventures in being anywhere that happened to be green. I know people who got married back in here. There were summer camps that happened back in here. My high school would take field trips back in this joint. This was my mom's favorite park. When one of her partners would come into town, this is where we would go for picnics. I'm pretty sure I shot some rockets off in this park once with an ex-boyfriend of mine. So yeah, it just, because this park featured in so primary into like all the stories of my childhood and youth growing up, I figured I'd give you guys a quick drive back in here. Like I said, it is one of a vast network of metropolitan parks that the Franklin County Metro Parks puts on, and they're all over the Columbus region, and they extend as far south as part of the Hocking Hills, which is ridiculous because it's like an hour and a half drive from here. Why the one that's that far south is a part of the Metro Park system, I don't know. It's a fairly short green drive, and I promise you it's the only green I'm going to show you on this video. Because I do feel kind of bad that I'm like, forest, you have to see the forest. Look at how foresty everything is forested. The fact is, I really like the color green, and I like trees, and I like forests, and I like being outside. You get a deal with me being all about, oh look, it's so green and so pretty. We didn't really get a whole lot of wildlife back in here. I mean, there are deer. It is certainly the biggest wildlife back in here. But there's also the usual raccoons. Yeah, did sit around and watch raccoons with an ex one time, and I've been back in this park with my mom so many times. Went on a bike ride with a friend of mine on the multi-use trail back in here and freed a juvenile gopher from a chain link fence. He had gotten his head stuck. I will say that gophers have very nice fur. Might have been a groundhog. Let's say groundhog. Anyway, got him loose from the chain link fence. I don't advocate touching wildlife with your own two hands, but didn't have any gloves. So I just kind of peeled his head back out of the fence. And he turned around and hissed at me and ran off. Now, of all the sounds I ever expected a groundhog to make, hissing at me was not on that list. And I don't know if that hiss was, "Oh dear God, it's a human, I'm scared, I gotta leave, bye," or if that hiss was, "Thank you very much, leaving now." But anyway, this is the back of the park. This is where the nature center's at. The multi-use trail goes kind of in a loop back in here, and it now connects up with a vast network of rail-to-trail kind of things that have taken place in the Columbus metro area over the last mumbledy number of years. So at this point in time, the multi-use trail here connects up with the trail that goes into downtown, and that trail connects up with one that goes north to the north end of Columbus, up toward where the Columbus Zoo is. So if you're looking at a map of the Columbus Zoo, we talked about it being, a clock face. The Columbus Zoo is like just north of 11 o'clock on the clock face, and we are down between 3 and 4 on the clock face. So you can take a multi-use trail that entire length of the city. There are probably more complex networks than that now than the last time I looked at them. But yeah, Columbus has become a very bikeable city in a way that it just wasn't when I was a kid. So the push toward, green energy, renewables, getting people out of their cars and onto their feet and their bicycles has definitely impacted the landscape of this suburban neighborhood. And it's a good thing to see. So yeah, if you ever find yourself in Franklin County, Columbus, Ohio, and you're looking for somewhere green to be during the day, since some of you are van lifers, I do need to specify these are all day use parks. To the best of my knowledge, you cannot or are not allowed to park overnight in any of the metro parks. Now, can you get away with it? I'm assuming not, because I'm pretty sure they patrol these on the regular. Can you do it on the down low? Like if you buried a tent back into the woods, you maybe could get away with that, but I wouldn't recommend it. Because like I said, these are intended to be day use parks. They're treated that way by the locals. They're treated that way by the park rangers. So yeah, I wouldn't advocate overnighting back in here at all. But I will say that the Walmart on this side of town, I haven't checked iOverlander about it, but when I lived out here, there were regularly RVs, semi-trucks, people with their slide-outs out at the nearby Walmart. So if you find yourself on the east side of Columbus, Ohio, the Walmart has historically been overnight friendly. The Metro Park system is not. But for day use, once the sun comes up and you want to come back in here and, hang out in a green space, absolutely recommend potable water, bathrooms. I don't think there's a shower facility. Like I said, this is a day use kind of facility. But there's a trail, there's some limited exercise bars where you can do like stretching and pull-ups and things like that. Lots of awnings, and both big group awnings as well as small group awnings, where you can just set up for the day. You don't have to rent them, and just have some shade and, work on your laptop or your craft project or whatever it is you do while you're living out of your own space. So yeah, this is a resource in that regard. I'll try and put it on iOverlander later because it might prove useful to people during the day, if it's not already on there. but I had to show you. I promise that's the only green driving in this video. Thank you for visiting your metro parks. Alright, now we're about 2 blocks from the high school at the moment, and for reasons that I don't fully understand, the Reynoldsburg School District decided that elementary kids would be grades K through 5, middle school kids would be grades 6 and 7, and then they would have a junior high school that would be grades 8 and 9. And so now let's say we're 3 blocks from the high school. This was the junior high. So this is all the approach to the building. And the buses would come take this turn here. And it was just this weird, low, one-level building, no real external windows. I mean, some light got in. The whole thing was heated and air-conditioned, and it was just a really awkward kind of thing. So even though you were in 9th grade and technically a high school student, you were down here at the junior high. So yeah, never quite understood really what the point of that was, but I did one day blitz down that slight incline that you saw there on my bike, not realizing my brakes were wet. And when I tried to pull up to a short stop right next to the van that I thought a friend of mine was sitting in at the time, I ran smack right into the side of the van. Now through here, there we go. That is Reynoldsburg High School, or it was. I believe there's now 2 high schools in town, and I think this is one of them. But this is where I went from through 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. So yeah, that's where I graduated from. It looks a lot different now than it did when I was here. It was 4 separate buildings that you had to walk between the buildings. It was set up to evoke a campus feel, so you had to leave one building, go to your class in a different building. It was to prep us for college. I don't know. But anyway, it was a high school. It went kind of like a high school goes. If you don't know what an 80s high school was like, watch Breakfast Club. You'll get the idea.